This evening, I have a very interesting gentleman that is with me here. And I'm telling you, I don't even know how to describe him because he doesn't do one thing. He does everything. He does a variety, you name it. He is a writer, a producer, a director, a voiceover talent for radio and television. He owns his own business. And many of you may remember him. He is the star of the Prevagen television commercial that is airing coast to coast and doing a fantastic job. And he is joining us here, Douglas Ekman. Doug, welcome to the show.
Mark, thank you so much for having me. This is a joy. I've followed your career, and I think you said to me when we first talked, you and I are a lot alike. We've done a lot of different things.
Well, we have a long career, and as you know, and that's something we are going to talk about, anything you do in this form of entertainment, you are going to have a long career because you basically do everything. And correct me if I'm wrong, but is it not good to be very versatile in this business?
Well, that's a good question. I grew up wanting to do a lot of things, and Mark, I don't know about your childhood, but I was a kind of a lonely kid. And so I had to fabricate the world around me. And in some ways, it was probably the greatest thing that I ever did, because as a young boy, I would, do my fantasies. I do the theme music, da, 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 da. I would do everything. Well, as I grew up, I found I liked all of those things. I liked writing because it was a great escape for me. I liked the fantasy world because that was something that I could control, where in my life as a young child, that wasn't the case. And as time went on, I started doing commercials after I was in radio for a while, and the scripts were terrible, and I would say, couldn't we say this a little different? And finally, they said to me, "You think you're so smart? Why don't you write them?" And so I had my challenge, and I started writing the commercials, and eventually I ended up uh, doing pretty much what you've done. I mean, come on, you have such a storied career and successful in so many of them. And I guess I did it for survival at one time.
Mhm.
Because I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket.
Well, I like you, Douglas. I'm not going to say I was a lonely child, but I was an only child. I had no brothers or sisters. So growing up, mom and dad, of course, were always there. But like you, I had a love for the television, the entertainment, and I grew up in the Chicagoland area. And I'm sure you are familiar, everyone has heard of Bozo Circus.
Sure.
That is something I grew up with as a kid. And there, of course, was Ringmaster Ned, who was the ringmaster. And guess what? I used to come home and play Mr. Ned. Honest to God, my dad, are you ready for this? My dad built me a set. I had a set in the house.
Oh my
I
God.
had a stick microphone, and it would be Bozo Circuses are on the air. And
Yeah.
you know what? I just had a love for the business, and it began as a baby. I started doing television commercials, and then it just blossomed. One thing led to another. And also, networking is very important. Now, like you have mentioned, the love has been there since a child. How old were you when we can say you were professionally doing this?
It really didn't start until college for me. Uh,
Mhm.
as a small child, I would watch, as you watched, you had Bozo Circus, uh, early days of television. I'm much older than you. Uh, we'd have old English films, which helped
Mhm.
me to work on my English accent, which my English nanny made me talk that way. She used to
Mhm.
make me say lift instead of elevator and lorry instead of truck. So I grew up watching all these English films, mind you. Well, on film, though, was our gang comics and also Charlie Chaplin. So as an 8-year-old boy, I had a derby hat and I wore it everywhere. And my mother would beg me Douglas, we're going out to dinner. Can you leave your derby at home? Well, of course not. That was my prop. But I was an athlete. I was a all-state football player, a hockey player, a track person. And when I got to college, I decided I couldn't be an athlete and be a good student too. It was just too demanding. But they had a radio station on that campus, and I got my radio show. And it was so funny. I was the first disc jockey in America to play Del Shannon's Runaway,
Wow.
which I broke that record because a guy by the name of Maximilian, who was his electric piano person, was a disc jockey there as well. He threw the record on the console and said, "Here, this is going to be a hit." And I played it. But college is where it really started. I went to graduate school. I got a graduate assistantship in educational broadcasting. It was a government grant. And I worked at a very fine Peabody radio station. But there I had to take on this other persona, you know, good evening and welcome to Fireside Philharmonic, a program featuring the world's most beautiful music performed by outstanding artists. And I did that show for about 2 years. In the first few weeks, a listener wrote in, and I'm Swedish background. He said, "Why does your announcer announce all the German in Swedish accents?" Well, I wasn't the best at educational broadcasting, and I eventually became a school teacher, but left that for a radio show, which was really my step into show business. And during that time, I auditioned the Merv Griffin show next to Sardi's in that theater, and I wrote for a number of other people. But you said something to me early on. I think people today are afraid to take chances. That's the biggest problem with the young people today. They don't want to fail.
I agree with you 100%. You know, my belief is if you fall down, you pick yourself up and you go again. Everybody fails. If I told you the things I failed at, we'd be here all day talking. Yeah. But you keep going, and sooner or later, success does come. That is very critical. But you are right. The young people today also want success right now. This minute, they think they walk on. When I give lectures, you think you're going to enter the entertainment business, make $1 million the minute you enter a set, you better walk out right now, because it doesn't work that way. But that is very true, and hard work pays off.
Yeah, you know, I do voiceovers. If I'm lucky, Mark, I get 1 out of 50 auditions that I get. You got to be used to rejection, and you can't be thin-skinned about this. You just got, as you say, you've got to get yourself back up. I remember I was working at Time Life Broadcast in Grand Rapids, WOOD, where their slogan was, "You've got wood." And I said, "Are you sure this is your slogan?" They said, "Yes." So anyway, at that time, I heard about this wonderful new show that was going to happen in New York. They didn't have a name on it yet. It eventually became Saturday Night Live. So I felt that I would be perfect for that. I'd already left a very nice job with Gilmore Enterprises, AJ Foyt Racing. People thought I was crazy to give up something that had that kind of money and that prestige, but I had to follow like a moth to the flame. I had to do what I wanted to do. Just like, you know, you're producing a film right now. I mean, all the other things that you're doing that as well, because you're driven to do it, you know, and it's not like it's a special knack, but I don't know why I'm that way. Anyway.
Well, I am that way too. Yeah, I'm that way too. And that is very important. You need to be driven. I just got a message the other day from Ross Schaefer. I'm sure you remember him. He used to host The Late Show on Fox TV. And Ross actually did my show, and he and I are friends. Ross just messaged me the other day, "Mark, I'm in awe of your goals, your tenacity, everything what you do. He's like, man, keep doing it. We got to keep moving.
Yeah.
And of course, Ross is writing a comedy show right now
Yeah.
as we speak. But that is very true. You have to be driven, as you do in any profession. I mean, if you want to be a veterinarian, you have to be driven. If you're not driven in that field, you will never succeed. And this is something that I talk to the young people about.
Well, look at so many actors in recent years who were also Rands or character actors, although we don't have a great stable of those anymore, that ended up now have become great stars. One role, that role came along, and that's the way I feel about the voiceover business. That next one, sometimes I finish second to be the new Smokey the Bear. I finished second to be the voice of Viking Cruise Lines, and that's a killer when you get that close and they narrow you down to 2 or 5 people and you finish second. You go, oh, I wish I would have finished 27th at that point.
Oh, yes, yes.
But
now you also, you are behind the Mitsubishi, the Max Matson, correct?
yeah, I had known Max when he had worked with a large automotive group, the Handley Dawson Group, and when the Dawson people went out of business and left me with a very giant debt. It's the second time I lost all my money, but he called me up and he said, "Part, I hear things aren't so good. Could you come up with an idea for me?" And this is a point I had laid off all my employees. I was down to me and one other person. Studio One gave me an old studio, small one that I could put an office in for free. And I would always tell my clients, I'll come to your office. Well, you're on Michigan Avenue. I said, no, I think it'd be better if I come to you. I didn't want them to see my office. And I came up with this, the theme, The Doctor. I knew Bob Newhart, and he did a bit always with the phone. You never heard the other person talking, you always heard him. So I met Max for lunch one day, and he said, "What did you come up with me for?" And I said, "Well, Max, let me do it for you." Well, there were probably 30 people around us in tables. So here I am, and I know you've done this. I'm at the table. I'm actually singing the jingle and playing the table like it were a piano. And he's mad, he's bad, Max Madsen. And the very first commercial I wrote for him was, "Hello, this is the doctor." "Oh, hello, Max Madsen. What is it now, Grand Poobah?" "What? People think you're crazy." "Well, they wouldn't think you're crazy if you didn't try to give your cars away. But I know how you do it. You only hire relatives, and everyone knows you don't pay relatives as much money as you pay regular people, and you pass the savings on to the customer. You might be mad and bad, but you're not crazy." Well, he sat there, Mark, and I know you've been in these meetings. I'm sitting there with my whole life in my hands. I owe bills. I have my wife at this point is going to be supporting me. I've lost a part of an auto dealership that I had owned. I had to sell, and I'm waiting for an answer. And he looked at me and said, after about 30 seconds of silence, he said, "I think I like it, but does it have legs?" Meaning, could we do more than one? Well,
Sure.
when his stepson stopped using me 3 years ago, we had done over 600 commercials in 30 years. And when it went off the air, it was the longest running automobile commercial series in the history of Chicago. And
I remember it. I grew up, I hate to say grew up listening to it, but I remembered. I
I'm
love
sure you
that
did grow up
commercial.
listening to it. Yeah.
I love that commercial. Now let's talk. Speaking of commercials, today you are very well known for the Prevagen commercial. It's
Yes.
airing. I see you all day on television. Just briefly, because we are kind of running out of time. How did all of that come about for you?
Well, I had a friend who makes these custom golf bags for the PGA golfers. He's like those very expensive ones with their names on the side. Well, he made a pair of those bags for the CEO of Prevagen. And when he was talking to him, he said, you know, you should meet a buddy of mine. At the time, I was 79. I'm now 81. And he said, my friend is 79. You wouldn't know it. He still writes, produces, directs, does voiceovers. And he said the reason is Prevagen. And about a week later, I got a phone call from the CEO. And he said, we'd love to have you do this commercial. We see you as a Renaissance man. Well, that was the first time I'd ever been called. I'd been called a lot of things, Mark, but Renaissance man was not one of them. And the next thing I know, a crew came into town and they sat me down in a large house over on Bellevue and for 5 hours just talked to me. There was no script. I just chatted with the director, like you and I are sitting here talking. And then they followed me around the next day in studios, and then my wife and our dogs on the beach. And all my friends said, your wife and the dogs should have got more FaceTime than you. You know how friends are, they love to bust you. But they've been fabulous. They are a fabulous company. And I was taking it 7 years before they had me do the commercial. And I buy it over the counter. I don't get it free. People think, oh, you take it because it's free. No, I bought it in CVS the other day, and 2 people in back of me went and bought the bottles because I said it worked. Now, it works for me. That's all I can tell you.
It is a great commercial. And Doug, all what you have done, like I says, it's volumes you have done. What do you want to be most remembered for?
An honest, good guy, I guess, Mark. That's really, when it really gets down to it, you know, in this business, you can meet some really wonderful people, and you can also meet the other side.
Oh, and, yes, absolutely. And I have met both, like you.
Yeah. Honesty, people who don't talk behind your back. I mean, I'm an upfront person, as you are. You got to gripe with me.
I say it the way it is.
Yeah, that's exactly. And that's how I grew up. My father was a very honest man, the greatest man I've ever known. And he gave me, you know, that trait. It says honesty is extremely important. I guess, you know, the Prevagen thing is amazing. After what I've done as a contributing writer for Saturday Night Live and other things over the years that I've done, creative director on Dodge during the Iacocca rebuilding, this thing it's the power of television, as you know. I can't go anywhere without someone saying, hey, it's the Prevagen man. And the president of ESPN one day in an outdoor cafe yelled, hey, everybody, there's the Prevagen man. And everybody in the cafe looked.
Well, that is really great. And also talking briefly, just what we mentioned earlier about saying the way it is and all, because I also am a former teacher. Do you think being a teacher has something to do with that? Because as you know, you're in the room, you're vocal, you're giving your students advice. That's your day. Do you think that is why you are today, why you are?
Well, I love teaching, which I'm sure you did as well.
Oh, yes, very much.
The give and take with students, the excitement, the honesty there. And I was honest. If they wanted to talk about something, I said, if you're not pulling my leg, we'll put the lesson plan aside and we'll discuss what you really want to discuss. And so I think maybe the ability to communicate, and you know, kids are the toughest audience you'll ever have to deal with.
Oh, yes.
And they know a four-flusher. They know if you don't know your stuff, they can pick it up just like that. So,
exactly.
I think
communication that's a point. The key.
The what?
Communication is also the key to success.
It's the big communication. If I have time, I just want to tell you a little story very quick. We have
about 2 minutes left.
Okay, when I auditioned for Saturday Night Live as a contributing writer, I never worked with the crew. They didn't. I auditioned, and when I did that audition, Pat McCormick, who was the head writer for Carson, Johnny Carson at that time, had been a comedian himself and vice presidents and everybody. And I did a bit, a comic bit I wrote called Know Your Country. And I had a German character, and he would say, well, first of all, we are not militaristic people. We are fun-loving people. All we like to do is press a little button, swap a little spit, and dance the polka. And how can you take any people serious who would invent a silly dance like the polka? When I said that, Pat McCormick, who was about 6'4", jumped to his feet in the Steinway Music Hall and started belly laughing. I said to myself, if I can make Pat McCormick laugh, and as it turned out, I had one of the highest scores, but they wouldn't let me. They felt I wouldn't fit in with the rest of the Chicago cast, which were mostly Second City people.
Yes.
So
Well,
then I wrote as a contributing writer for the show, and I was doing stand-up elsewhere.
That is a great story. Well, Doug, unfortunately, we are out of time. But listen, thank you so much. Much continued success with your career. We are all going to be watching now the Prevagen commercials, and who knows what else is going to be coming your way. Thank you for being on the show.
Mark, thank you so much for having me, and good luck with your film. I know you're in Atlanta right now working on it. So
thank you
very much.